Am I audible to all of you? My voice is clear? Okay. Yeah, fine, perfect. Okay, guys, so we will start with the session. We will start with this particular topic. The first one that you have is discuss M. N. Srinivas' approach to sociology. Okay, so here I don't think that I have any short notes for today. Maybe this farmers movement, like you guys will get short notes like dominant caste, Sanskritization, right? Westernization, modernization of Indian tradition, heterogenetic features of India for Yogendra Singh, and then slums in India, sex ratio, patriarchy. These are short notes which you can expect, and they will give you right at the top, right in sociological perspective. So how does it different from GS answers? You clearly know. We have discussed it in the classes also. So slums in India, when you're writing in sociology, it should be different the way you're writing in your GS. Similarly, patriarchy or sex ratio, MGNREGA, just like that, they will put that MGNREGA. So that you need to answer in a sociological perspective. So I will be discussing about all those things, how you are going to write in a sociological perspective. Now, trust me, guys, one important thing that I want to tell you is when you see writing in sociological perspective at the top, most of you used to talk to your seniors. That means those who have appeared this exam for so many times or those who have cracked this exam. And some of them will advise you, you need to write a lot of thinkers in your paper too, right? Yes, you need to write thinkers, but people take it in a wrong way. That most of the students who's interacting with me, how they have taken it as like this: you need to fill your answer with thinkers and you need to write answer only with thinkers. For example, a question was asked on sex ratio, you have to talk only about, sex ratio, what is discussed by thinkers like Nivedita Menon, what has been said, Veena Das, what has been said, right? So this is how you will be writing answer right from the first paragraph. According to Nivedita Menon, the green revolution in India, that is affecting sex ratio, or Veena Das, you start writing this. Then what is your point there, what you are going to do there? That is not the way you need to answer your paper to. First understand that when I say sociological perspective, it doesn't mean that you need to keep on writing thinkers. You should never do that. Even if you write it in paper one, still it's okay. Because if the question is asked on functions of family, you will start writing according to JP Murdoch. Then there are four functions. Ronald Fletcher have given function. Parson have given primary socialization, adult personality stabilization. Durkheim have given function. You can write functions with thinkers, no problem. When it comes to paper one, but still that is not looking good. If you can write from your side, that will be much better. But when it comes to paper two, people mistakenly believe that you need to fill your answer with thinkers. Now understand, and you have to trust me here, you should not be doing that. It's all about what you think about that. You need to write what is your idea, what is your knowledge, what do you think about that, your perspective, what you have learned as a sociologist over a period of time. And only to substantiate your answer, I repeat, only to substantiate your viewpoint, you need to use thinkers. Otherwise, no need. And if you are very good and if you are putting your point in a right way, then even if you don't have any thinkers with you to substantiate, still no problem. So what I've seen is people just run behind thinkers and asking me, so which thinker I will quote for this point. If I give you one or two, you will not be satisfied. You're talking about how will I am going to fill with 1.5 page or 2 page with thinkers. You're not going to do that. For one answer, if you're writing more than 2-3 thinkers, it will look really bad. In fact, it's not good. You may think that keep on writing thinkers is what actually good. No, if you can write a valid point, think yourself as a sociologist. Now, one more thing, in case if you don't have your own point, if you have learned the thinker, write or manipulate that as your own point and then write that. There is no point in writing according to Dibankar Gupta, according to SC Dubey, according to MN Srinivas, according to Veena Das, according to this guy, that guy. Don't do that. That is not going to be sociological perspective. Perspective means what you think, what you have learned over a period of time in sociology, how you're going to apply it, how you're going to analyze it, MGNREGA, how you are going to analyze it, what is your viewpoint, what you have read, and then substantiate. Okay, how is it affecting poverty? How is it affecting the lifestyle change? or how is it changing the sex ratio? Is it affecting the sex ratio? Or these dimensions have to be brought in, and then you need to quote thinkers. So when the question was asked on green revolution, where also you can bring migration elements, sex ratio, different thinkers have talked about something. Make your point first and then talk about those thinkers. So that is one point which I want to tell you. This is the most important point, in fact, which I need to clarify. There's a misconception, misunderstanding, and misinterpretation done by many, in fact, students. The teachers might have told in a different tone, in a different language, or the seniors. But when you are writing answers to me, this is what I can see. This right from the first sentence, according to this, according to this, according to this, it's like, trust me, guys, once you start evaluating some other's paper, you will understand that. Then what is your role there, right? Then what you have learned in sociology? Have you learned just the thinkers and reproducing the same? No, right? So if they're asking you to write, in your view, the sociological perspective, now, whether it is correct or not, you have to make a point, and you should be in a position to write that point, and only to substantiate your point. If you feel that I need to substantiate, then you need to use thinker, and that will be appreciated. Okay, but there may be some cases where they will ask you SC Dubé idea on village. You need to write that, like M.N. Srinivas approach to sociology. You have nothing to do there, right? Those kinds of questions. Andre Bette's understanding on caste, Andre Bette's understanding on village, G.S. Gurria's understanding on tribe or caste or religion. You have nothing to do, but I will tell you what you can do over there. You have nothing to do on G.S. Gurria's approach, but even though the question is about G.S. Gurria, you will be talking about others. That is where you are going to reflect your point and your knowledge, right? Because you can talk about M.N. Srinivas, you can talk about A.R. Desai, you can talk about Andre Bette and many other thinkers. You can connect with the same topic. That's exactly the approach that you need to follow. So trust me, and you go with this approach only. Even if the question is asked on X, you need to write X dash, X double dash, X triple dash. You don't write about Y, Z, and A, B, C, D. No, don't do that. If it is connected to X, you have to write that. If M.N. Srinivas is asked, G.S. Gurria is one way connected to M.N. Srinivas. A.R. Desai is also connected to M.N. Srinivas. So never miss that. And trust me, guys, one more thing. If this question is asked, let's take, now I'll explain with the question. Discuss M.N. Srinivas' approach to sociology. If this question is there in your paper 2, they will know. I don't think that there will be a chance of getting G.S. Gurria and A.R. Desai in the same paper. The chances are very less, because hardly you have these three thinkers. First chapter, expect one question. So if they're asking M.N. Srinivas, the chances are very rare that you will be here. I have asked, because I'm just going to tell you how you're going to write, because this is not the way they are going to ask question, right? M.N. Srinivas asks, the chances are rare. They may be possibility you will get 2 questions also, but the chances are rare. And if you, when you scan through the paper, you will see that, right? If you find that G.S. Gurria and A.R. Desai is not there, this is an opportunity for you to also talk about G.S. Gurria and A.R. Desai. Never only talk about M.N. Srinivas. So here, you know the answer. I'm not talking about the approach here. M.N. Srinivas approach, that is structural functionalism, everything you know. But how you're going to write is what I'm telling you. Guys, I will not be talking about the content. Content-wise, you are super strong, and there is no problem with your content. Whatever I have given to you, that PDF is enough, and whatever source I've told you to read, in case if you need extra, that is there. So we are not talking about the content, you know, his approach and the main points and the criticisms, everything. That PDF and the classes is enough. Here, M.N. Srinivas' approach to sociology. So first of all, you need to talk about structural functionalism, right? And okay, I have told you here, you need to talk about A.R. Desai and G.S. Gurria. That is there in your mind. Second thing, you can also talk about the functionalist approach. So M.N. Srinivas' asked means you should definitely be talking about Emile Durkheim. So you should be starting your answer with Emile Durkheim, because this is exact cut copy paste of Emile Durkheim's approach. Structural functional approach. From where we have learned it, Emile Durkheim. So that you have to introduce Emile Durkheim. But what is the difference? That point is what most of the students miss. Emile Durkheim, structural functionalism. But if you see in his theories, whether it is theory of religion or theory of suicide, did he actually went and collected the data directly from the primary sources? No, he used the secondary source, even for theory of religion. But what M.N. Srinivas is doing, direct collection, right? Field work. He is going to the field and collecting the data from the primary source. There is a big difference between Emile Durkheim and M.N. Srinivas in the approach of data collection. So structural functionalism, you have to talk. You have to start with introduction of Durkheim, but at the same time, you have to tell that when it comes to M.N. Srinivas, it is structural functional ethnography. What is that? It is a modification of Durkheim's approach. That is structural functionalism plus field work. You got me? So there itself, you have added too much of value more than what is asked. Then you also need to talk about the period in which M.N. Srinivas was writing. Firstly, we got independence and welfare state. We need everything, the actual reality, not the bookish view. That is the reason why we need a field work, and we need to see things in a functional terms. Because at this juncture, you don't want to criticize the government, because welfare state is expected to solve the problems of poverty, inequality, unemployment, and everything. So we need a more realistic and rational approach. So Marxist perspective is not relevant. So this perspective is relevant. More than that, you also need to talk about 1940s, considering this as a 20 marker. 10 marker, you need to adjust your content. 1940s, it's a time of functionalism. You have seen Davis and Moore theory, you have seen Parsons' theory on stratification. This is a period where functionalism is at its peak, and Parsons have taken functionalism to its logical conclusion. So you need to mention about that also. And then you also need to tell about Evans Pritchard and Malinowski, Redcliffe Brown, not Malinowski. In fact, the mentors of M.N. Srinivas. So there is his approach is a blend of his mentors, right? Evans Pritchard, Redcliffe Brown, Emile Durkheim, and functionalism that time also have influenced a lot. And the situation in India, all these things need to be covered in the introduction. So we have introduced Emile Durkheim. We have talked about structural functional ethnography, the modifications we have done. We have talked about Parsons, and we have talked about functionalism. We have talked about Evans Pritchard and Redcliffe Brown. In the first paragraph, that is a art you need to learn in one paragraph, how I'm going to incorporate all these things. This is the only difficult thing that you will do that will come over a period of time. Okay. And then we will come to his approach. You talk about the elements of his approach. Okay. And that 4 or 5 elements which we have discussed, you need to write, identifying the patterns, identifying the functions and all those things and his approach. And then talk about field work. Okay. And give an example how you're going to substantiate. You will talk about his study of Coorg in the Mysore, and then you will talk also about study of Rampura. Or you can specifically talk about the concept of dominant caste, which I'm not discussing now what is dominant caste, Sanskritization, Westernization, or Brahminization. Generally, you can talk about either Sanskritization and dominant caste. And you can tell that this is what the advantage of field work. You will come to know the reality. What is written in book and what is actually practiced is entirely different. Dominant caste is something which we have never seen in book, right? Or Sanskritization is never possible. But according to Durkheim, it is possible. Explain that. How you're going to bring Guri here. How you're going to bring A.R. Desai. A.R. Desai you can bring as a criticism to his approach, because it's a Marxist approach. Like the way we used to criticize Emile Durkheim by using Karl Marx, just like that you can use A.R. Desai. One line, you won't face any problem. But how you're going to bring G.S. Gure here? In fact, if Durkheim have to start a study, anything, you have to refer to bookish view, right? If you need to study about caste system, you need to make an understanding on dominant caste or Sanskritization, or whether it is joint family or village studies or anything. First, you have to understand what is it, right? So for that, you need to refer to Indological sources. So there is an influence of G.S. Gure also. So he have also referred to the studies of G.S. Gure. So we have introduced all the thinkers. That means you are telling the examiner that we know all these things very clearly. So these are the things which has to be there in your answer, no matter whether it is 10 marker or 20 marker. It's all about the way you're going to adjust, because you're not going to get any other chance to explain these points. Okay, guys. So when you get a chance on MNC, similarly, if you get a question on G.S. Gure, suppose this, okay, next question in fact is given as G.S. Gure. If the question is about G.S. Gure, still after writing, so there you need to talk about his approach. First, you talk about classical Indology, the British administrators and the British scholars and the evolution and everything and then you talk about modern Indology, sociological Indology, G.S. Gure's approach, and that 4 or 5 elements that we have discussed. It's about understanding, it's about historical moorings and looking into the bookish view. Understanding is what matters, not providing solutions. And that elements which we have listed down, criticism also you can write. And then how you're going to bring M.N. Srinivas here. This is bookish view, that right? So the reality may be entirely different. For example, Durkheim's, not Durkheim, it will always come Durkheim instead of M.N. Srinivas. In fact, I used to write in papers also. I have written, and that's the reason why I suffered also in one of the paper. Okay, so don't do that. Durkheim always comes instead of M.N. Srinivas for me. It's even now also it is coming. Some of the students also do the same thing. Okay, so how you bring M.N. Srinivas here? When you're writing G.S. Gure, you will be talking about his studies. You have to mention, right? They're not asking you his studies here, but when you're writing the Indological perspective, you should be bringing his studies. Guys, I have talked about the elements and everything in the first chapter. Then I've told you need to incorporate studies from various other chapters where we discussed about G.S. Gure. Various other chapters we have discussed. We discussed about G.S. Gure in the chapter on tribes, right? His understanding on tribes, backward Hindus, and that continuum. And we have discussed about G.S. Gure in the chapter on caste, right? That 6 features, attributional approach, and 6 features, which is based on book view. Chapter on religion, his idea on religion, his idea on family. Any two you take, what is the best to take? You can talk about caste and family. Why? Because M.N. Srinivas was also talking about that. So you can make a comparative understanding, right? And then once we have 4, 5, you can take any two and then tell the other side, M.N. Srinivas have seen caste in this way. It is not that rigid that Gure is talking about, right? Talk about Sanskritization and dominant caste. Because anyway, this first question is not there. So you don't mind repeating. But in actual paper, it is not repeating. If G.S. Gure is there, M.N. Srinivas won't be there. That's a general trend, right? So no problem. And you have to write that. All these things have to be incorporated somewhere or the other. Towards the end, you can also write A.R. Desai. And first you need to write about this classical Indology. So guys, this is how you need to incorporate what all things you know. That's what I've told you. If the question is about X, write about X dash, X double dash, X triple dash, everything connected to X you need to write. Only thing is that you should not write about Y. There is no point in writing about Y, right? So you know how Marx is connected to Durkheim, Durkheim is connected to Weber, Weber and Parson, all connections, you know, everybody is connected. There is nothing like, you know, one independent question will be asked. So you should be reflecting your knowledge, whether it is 10 marker or 20 marker, based on the word limit you have to do that. Similarly, Marxist approach. Here you will start with Marxian idea, economic infrastructure, superstructure, systemic view, and how it is used in Indian context. Okay, here specific to Indian nationalism. So guys, this is a very specific question. What we have discussed is in general, but in the second chapter, there is a topic on social background of Indian nationalism. That's where this question is asked. Indian nationalism. There, A.R. Desai is analyzing the Indian nationalism from economic side. So first you talk about Marxian understanding, the perspective and everything. Then what you will do is you will divide the Indian national movement into, let's say, 5 phases. Maybe 1773 to 1857, one phase. 1857 to 1885, another phase. 85 to 1905, another phase. 1905 to non-cooperation movement, till then one phase. And then onwards to 1947, another phase. So 5 phases, and how things are evolved based on the change in material condition, how Swadeshi movement helped the Indian capitalist and how they contributed in the further freedom struggle. So this is how he analyzed and we discussed. I have attached the class, right? So you have seen that. So content wise, no problem. There's an easy question, there's a straightforward question. So here, nothing more to discuss. In fact, these two were actually connected together. This is what asked us an essay this year, and you can expect essay. You can expect a GS question, paper 1. You can also expect in paper 1 sociology, paper 2 sociology, because this patriarchy and sexual division of labor that is there in paper 1 and paper 2, violence against women, paper 2. So how we have covered this, first we discussed about patriarchy and then sexual division of labor and then violence against women. And then as a solution to all these, we have discussed about women movement. This is how we have covered, integrated all this. So here, violence against women, in fact, let's answer this first one, fifth one first. What is patriarchy? To what extent patriarchy is a cause for problem in India? In fact, patriarchy is the reason for violence against women. So the second part is actually connected to the first question. And Problem for women means mainly violence against women. Patriarchy is manifested in terms of violence against women. Manifested. These are the words which you need to use in your paper. What is patriarchy, guys? It's a general authority which is given to male over female. And in paper one, we have discussed about Sylvia Valby and Oakley. Sylvia Valby is talking about private patriarchy, public patriarchy, patriarchy in family, patriarchy at the wider society. You can explain that, manifest, latent. And Oakley is talking about mother's role as culturally constructed role, right? Similarly, you will see in paper two when it comes to Uma Chakravarti, Nivedita Menon, Veena Das, all were talking about this, and you can add those contents as and when required based on the demand of the question. Content wise, you have that. What is patriarchy? It's an authority of male over female. How? It's a general authority which is given through norms and values. From where it is coming? From various religious prescriptions like preference for male child, the sati in discriminative practices, right? Sati, male widower can remarry, but female widow cannot remarry. So various discriminatory practices and various rituals, in fact, are the reason. For example, a man cannot renounce the world without procreating a son. That lead to preference for male child. That is also leading to superiority, inferiority, desirability of male child. That add value. Value means patriarchy. Okay, so female will be considered inferior. Female will be considered undesirable, like that. So talk about patriarchy at the level of family. That means authority of male or female, father's authority over mother, brother's authority over sister, husband's authority over wife, authority at the wider society, like general domination, right? Dominance of male over female. Again, salary wise also, glass ceiling effect, sexual harassment, all this you can write. Extension of this is what you can actually write: violence against women. Guys, whenever this question is asked, violence against women, what you need to do first is divide this into uh, manifest and latent. Manifest means what? We are using the concept of Merton, right? Manifest means actual act of aggression, which is going against women. Latent means hidden, the discriminatory practices. Or what you can do is you can divide like within family and wider society. You face violence in family also, right? Or how will you start this answer? First session itself, I've told you, I get a question on women. How will I start? Whether it is sociology or GS or essay, India is a land of paradox. On one side, women is treated as goddess, and on the other side, we deny her all independent identity and status and everything. That's how you will start, right? Yes, paradox. And then I'll give you one more sentence: the life cycle where she faced violence, feticide, even before the birth. From right, see, you can make it in your own beautiful language. I don't know how to use it. From womb to soil, or I don't know what you use. So feticide as a feet, and then when she was born, infanticide. Now it is because of technological advancements, feticide. Again, these kinds of women in sociology, GS, essay, it's a super marketable item if you can write good. Mahatma Gandhi also, right? If you have good knowledge and if you can write good, you will be scored. When I say marketable item means you will be able to score good. That's what I mean to say. Okay. So yeah, feticide, then infanticide, and then as a daughter, as a sister, you face discrimination, right? You face discrimination in terms of food, health, and education. And then as a wife, right, domestic violence and everything. And then as a widow, also discrimination and problems. So womb to end, or whatever language you want to use, you use it accordingly. Make it good. That's the only thing. That is a life cycle of female. Okay. And then you can divide into within family, wider society. Manifest, latent, manifest, latent. Tell me, within family, manifest, dowry, harassment, sexual, marital rape. They are manifest and latent. Have you ever heard in GS, Amar? Have you ever heard, except any one of you have ever heard manifest and latent in GS? Okay, so manifest, you will write within family, like dowry death, dowry harassment, and then feticide, infanticide, all these you can write. Okay. Latent is the discrimination. Manifest means actual act. You're doing something, act of aggression. Latent means discriminatory practices, right? So, like I've told you, the food, education, health kind of discrimination, you can write. Preference for male child, right? That is again a discrimination. Okay. Guys, just 1 minute. I just lost my screen. How to come back to the screen? Just 1 minute, guys. Okay, okay. Can you see the screen now? See, in GS, you can bring sociological knowledge, but you need to be very careful. Uh, there is no problem. Sometimes the school teachers won't understand, right? Even yesterday, this when it comes to this question, I'll tell you, Kha Panchayat and honor killing. Some of the rules, some of the concepts that we are discussing in sociology, they may not be able to understand. But these are general things, manifest and latent. Once we start discussing, then they will understand. Hidden. You don't want to use the word manifest and latent. Direct violence and indirect violence. Simply you can use that manifest and latent. It will be good. There is no problem. You can explain that. But there may be some concepts that they won't understand. That GS, because that GS papers are evaluated by school teachers. I told you before. So essay no problem, because like essay will be an expert. So you should be using all your sociological knowledge if you have, right? You can use that, no problem. What I was talking about. Yeah, now at the wider society. So, what is the manifest violence? The sexual harassment, rape, right? All these issues, guys. This is just a framework. You can add a lot, right? Your experience or your knowledge, what you have observed, what you have read. You can add. I'm just giving you the framework, and then you can also talk about latent means at the wider society, glass ceiling effect. That means beyond a level you cannot move, right? That the discrimination, difference in salary, sexual division of labor, indecent representation of women, all these are indirect. So if not manifest and latent, use direct and indirect. Okay. So that way you can write that. Now this one is what I want to discuss. Comment on Kha Panchayat and honor killing. I think we have discussed it already. Um, Guys, when we talk about Kha Panchayat, honor killing, in the chapter on family, when we discussed about lineage and descent, I've discussed with you a concept of clan. Clan means Gotra. So, what are the descent principles? Right from the beginning, family. Descent is limiting the kins. Family at the lower level, above that lineage, above that clan. Clan means you have some common ancestor there, right? Uh, far generation. And then above that, fratry. Fratry is equal to caste, clan is equal to Gotra. So, fratry, that is a mythical ancestor. You don't know who's the ancestor, you can't trace the ancestor also. It's a mythical ancestor. So, no problem in marrying within fratry. That means caste you can marry within. Caste endogamy is the rule. So, the rule is caste endogamy, marry within the caste. Brahmin, marry Brahmin. Kshatriya, marry Kshatriya. Within that, you have Gotras, right? That's what clan. They are the descendants of a common ancestor. That means they are related by blood. So you should not marry within the Gotra, within the clan. So the rule is clan, outside you marry, outside the clan, but marry within the caste. That means in the caste there are multiple clans. Marry X clan. If you are X clan, you marry Y clan, Y Gotra. That's the rule. Now, Kha Panchayat means it's the village elders. In village, people will live together. There will be norms and values. Their elder members. Now, what will happen is this entire Gotra. when they start living in a village. What does that mean? The entire Gotra is a village. Entire Gotra is living in an area, another Gotra in another area. So the village means people are related by blood. People are the descendants of a common ancestor, and their elders will take care of the rules and regulations of their life, right? So this is what happens at setup in general. Other concept is also there, but that's not important for us. Now here, if you marry from the village, what is the problem? You're marrying the relative. That is actually against the rule. Clan exogamy or Gotra exogamy, but the entire village is living together. Can you marry from the village? No. So you have to marry outside the village. So village exogamy, that is also the rule. Why? It is not village exogamy. It is actually clan or Gotra exogamy, but entire clan is in the village. That's why village exogamy. If you violate that, it's against the honor of the caste. You will be killed, not the caste, clan. Marrying outside the caste is not a big problem. It's not against honor or anything, because anyway you are not related by blood or anything. That's not a big problem. Even scientifically also, marrying from blood is a problem. Scientifically also, if you look into, but the other one is not a big problem. But if you see newspapers and everywhere, intercaste marriage is what is mostly written as honor killing. Yes, you can say that, but actual concept is related to clan. That's a marriage rule. Even caste endogamy is also a marriage rule. That's what you will ask me now. Then caste endogamy is also marriage rule. If you marry outside, that is against the honor. That also you can consider. That is what people generally consider. That is what you will see in newspapers. That is what you need to write in GS also. But clan exogamy is what specifically you need to write. If this question is asked, you need to explain the marriage rules in India. Clan exogamy, caste endogamy, Gotra concept, village elder concept, right? And then honor killing and the thinkers. Farmers movement, this year the question was asked and we were expecting, and I was predicting this question to that batch. If you are from that batch, you know that. So that question was asked. Now guys, farmers movement, if it is asked, what you will do, you will have to write about peasant movement first, not peasant movement. Tell what you mean by peasant and farmer, the conceptual difference. Both are conceptually different category. Peasant, mainly for subsistence purpose, smaller land holding. Farmer, profit motive, larger land holding, commercial purpose. Pre-independence, mostly, according to A.R. Desai, if you want to, you can write. Pre-independence, mostly peasant movement. Post-independence, mostly farmers movement. Especially post-Green Revolution, because after land reform and Green Revolution, land reform, some of them got a lot of advantages of land and they got benefit of land reform. And then when it comes to Green Revolution, you can use everything in large scale. So after Green Revolution, farmers movement are getting more importance. Their demands are entirely different. Peasant movement on one side, they are for small demands for reduction in tax, conferring ownership rights, reduction in rent. These are their demands. On the other side, if you look for farmers movement, their demands are like free electricity, free water, increase in MSP. And don't you think they have a huge impact? Yeah, yes, almost, right? If you see wheat and rice and all, MSP and market price is almost the same now. That is also one of the most important reasons for inflation, actually. So they have a reduction in no income tax. They also play a vital role with respect to agreement on agriculture, WTO agreements, right? Agreement on agriculture, the subsidy related case, food security, everywhere. So that, and what are you also need to talk about the methods that they use. Farmers movement, especially now, very active methods like Rasta Roko, Rail Roko, right? Blockade. Then what are the kind of ideology? Some of them are Marxist ideology, some of them are radical liberal, some of them are Gandhian ideology. Pre-independence, mainly Gandhian ideology. And then leadership, right? And then they are becoming a political group, political clout, and political lobbying is also there because they are able to capture the power. Because these farmers are having land wealth, and you can connect with the concept of dominant caste. They are dominant caste also because they are numerically also very strong. They have the land wealth, so they are emerging as dominant caste in that area. They are capturing the power also at the lower level because of numerical strength. Politically and in the coalition period, they have a huge control. Not in this government. If you see during UPA 2, especially UPA 1, there were, this coalition government time, they had a huge control and they can demand whatever they want. They used to get that. Now also, they have huge control. So income tax is not there for farmers, right? MSP is so high, free electricity in many areas, free water, all these advantages are there. So explain the difference and also add recent examples, right? But guys, there are five movements, right? Peasant movement, backward caste movement, ethnic movement, women movement, environmental movement. Two movements they will ask every year. So be very well prepared with this. Very well prepared with this. Ghanshyam Shah social movement is what we follow. You follow the class notes, exactly the answer what is required. Vajiram class notes also you need to read for that. It will be really good. Okay, the class notes is enough for writing the answer. To add more, you have to use internet and the current affairs have to be added because that recent example, that's the reason why they have asked the question last year. You should be talking about that, their demands and everything. And the advantage is two is asked, rest of the three, we will expect two questions from that three. So what is the probability? 2 out of 3, 66% probability. What is the idea of Indian village? Start from the British time, idea of Indian village, right from classical Indology time, that Indian village is very traditional, having everything they need within themselves, little republic, there is no interconnection, right, and all those things. And then talk about Gure, then talk about Andre Bhatti, S.C. Dubey, M.N. Srinu. Guys, just 1 minute. Hello? Unity. Guys, I'm so sorry. One of my very close friend have just got expired. I'm so sorry. The man who made me laugh, or uh, guys, I'll not be able to concentrate. We will do some other session. I'm so sorry, guys. I will not be able to continue now. Guys, we'll have another session some other day. Sorry, guys. I'll end the meeting here, guys. We'll meet on another day. I'll let you know.